How you doing? This is Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts, and today's episode is OTT, which is my chance to basically catch up and let you guys know what's been going on. So lately, I've been doing a lot of spring cleaning, and like everybody, it's just kind of one of those random things that you do, and you throw out things that you don't want and things that you do want. Well, in that process, I came across some old photos. And, one of the things, let me say, about artificial intelligence, because I know a lot of people have been talking about it. One of the things I personally enjoy is what it can do with photography. A lot of those pictures, when you grew up in the 80s and 90s, we used disposable cameras. They were prone to light problems affecting the picture that you took, or blurriness, or whatever it might have been that caused it, but to have issues. So I still have a lot of those. And what I've been doing is I've been running it through this artificial intelligence programs. That way I can figure out the new stuff that's coming out while I'm also fixing some old photos. Now, in the middle of that, I stumbled across some photographs of some of my friends. Now, one of those I consider like a brother. His name was Kenny. He went by Skrill, was his rap name. And most knew him by that. Now, I'm going to attach some photographs so you guys understand what I'm saying. But seeing the pictures of Skrill, man, it just kind of just stopped me cold and let me just reflect a little bit. I've been doing a lot of that lately, just reflecting on my life. And his death, it's one that still feels really fresh to me whenever I think about him, like a wound that really hasn't never really healed. Some days it actually does feel like it just happened yesterday, still. Like I said, he was like a brother to me. And let me explain this in detail why that is. See, that night that he died, I was one of the last people to talk to him. It was no more than around an hour before he actually died we had spoken. And sometimes, knowing that conversation that we had that night was one of the last ones that he had on this earth. And that's the part I think about, our conversation very well could have been one of the last conversations he had based on the time frame of when he died. And I think about that often. See, he was in this weird season of life where everything finally started turning around for him. He found God again. And he kept going on and on about that to me, man. Because back then I wasn't a Christian. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't stop talking about God. It was just all he did. He was talking about walking straighter and doing better in life and trying to do better and trying to get away from negativity and just focusing on good things. He would go on and on about that. See, at that time, he was close to actually getting custody of his children that he had been fighting for. Like, his baby mama took him to court, got full custody. He was finally about to get, I think it was partially custody, if I can remember right. Now, and at that same time, his other partner, right, he just opened up a grill shop over in that. Back then, grills were really getting big around 2006, 2007, in that time frame. And he had to actually become part owner in the grill shop, and they opened up. So he was excited about that. You know what I'm saying? And basically trying to go legit is really what it is, or legal, if you will. Finally, he's like, I can finally make some legal money, man. He was just so excited about that. He said that he finally had a legit full album. No more just recording in the corner, he says. See, let me explain. Back in the day, they would use my apartment or other apartments, right? And we would set up mattresses on the side of the apartment walls. And we'd have our microphone in the corner by the door frame, by right behind the front door, because there's a little square. So you could rap in there. And then we have Blue Eyes over here on the Pro Tools. At the time, it was Pro Tools. He was using Fruity Loops and LimeWire and all that kind of stuff, So he was finally, a legit album, man, that I went into an actual recording studio to actually do. And it was actually supposed to feature some really big Northern California household legendary names. And that was the part that he was most excited about. Yeah, why wouldn't you be, right? So everything finally seemed like it was lining up for him in the right way, is what I'm saying. That night, he told me that he wanted to swing by my house. And he wanted me to basically hang out and let me hear the album while we got caught up. It was one of those things. My ex, she hated most of my homeboys, but Skrill was one of the ones that she tolerated. You know what I mean? She didn't really like him, but she tolerated him. But at the same time, he's like, yeah, come over and hang out, and do all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I bet, okay. So I was actually looking forward to it. And, man, Skrill, myself, Meezy, White Boy, Joey, and Gino, and so many others to name, a lot of us basically had side hustles and a regular job at the same time. It was just one of those things that we decided to do. If we were going to do whatever, we were also going to have a legit job as well. If you know, you know. So, but we would always talk about opening up legit businesses. You know, that was a thing that our group talked about. You know what I'm saying? It was like opening up our own business and making something of ourselves. You know, whether that was going to be through rapping or whether that was going to be through going back to school and opening up a business, however it might be, that was what our goal was to do. You know what I mean? Was open up something and get up out of there. You know what I'm saying? And let me just say that real quick. I ain't never seen nobody that ain't trying to get up out of a bad neighborhood. So, however, the next morning, you know, he never showed up. So I went for a little walk at the time, smoking a blunt. I came across my homeboy Dion. Dion, he was like an R&B singer, but he was from Texas. But he had dated, you know, one of the local Sacramento girls. You know, things happened, and he decided that Sacramento was going to be his home. So anyways, I bumped into him that morning, and I was asking him if he's seen Skrill and everything else, you know. And he said, man, Mike, he said, I can't tell you what happened, bro. He said, I just don't have the heart to tell you, and I don't think I can see you whenever you do find out. And I said, what? He said, man, bro, he goes, you follow the news, just go turn on the fucking news. That's basically what he told me, for real. And then, you know, if you need to, reach out, let me know. So I knew something was up. It just didn't make sense. So that is basically how I found out, though. You know what I'm saying? That Skrill was gone. As I found out the news story, I'd dig and finally found it. And the car that he basically decided that he was going to get a ride in, because he told me he was getting a ride home from this like random snowflake, is what he said. He said, this snowflake that I'm hanging out with, man, she's going to give me a ride home. But anyways, the car that he was in, I guess the girl might have had warrants or something because she went on a police chase. And basically, from what I understood, the car on the off ramp to the neighborhood, when you get off into the neighborhood, there was a tree in a center divide. The car was going so fast that he hit that tree. And this tree was, you got to understand, this exit and this whole thing was just like minutes from my front door. Like literally, I could walk there in less than 2 minutes. The car exploded and his body was burnt up. And that image still kind of haunts me to this day. The seatbelt locked up somehow and actually severed his neck to where it was hanging in the process of the car wreck. Now, this car was one of those old school steel, like, you know, Cadillacs. I'm talking like really old school cars. And it was going so fast that when it hit the tree, it exploded. And to be honest, in that moment, man, you could say that was one of my first breaks, you know what I'm saying? One of my first mental breaks, hard thing to take in. And at the same time, around that same time period, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't a Christian. No, back then I was deeply involved in Satanism. And man, you talk about something to make you more angry. I grew so bitter and angry running from God and resentment towards God. I mean, when I got the news, I was even more madder at God. I cursed him. And I remember being so angry with God that I actually had a cross necklace. Now, I want you to understand something. As I said, I was a Satanist at the time, and Staten's wife, back when he was alive and they were married, at the time she had just started taking rosaries and cross necklaces, and what they were doing was they were customizing them and inverting them to be upside down and etc. So I used to have an upside down inverted rosary where the cross is inverted, and I used to wear that all the time. And I took that cross off, and I said, if this is what you're about, I remember looking at the sky saying, if this is what you're about, then I don't want anything to do with you. And then I threw it into the water. You got to understand something. At this time, man, I stayed angry for a long, long time. And I mean a deep inside anger that I still can't really explain. But at that time, with healing and God's grace, I began to see things a little bit differently. You know what I'm saying? I mean, with time. So here's what I want you guys to hear, okay, about Skrill. As I mentioned, we weren't exactly good people for a long time, and he died at the point in time in his life where things are starting to look up. But here's what I want you to remember about him. When I think about Kenny or Skrill, you know, it's not the hustler that I remember where he earned the nickname Skrilla, and I know why he got that nickname, where it came from. You know, that's not what comes to mind first. It's Kenny, the man that he was when he died. The man that rediscovered God. The one that shared his testimony with me when I was unwilling to hear it at the time. But I'm able to hear it when I remember now. The one who tried really did try the first people to pull me back into faith. He really did try. He would send me these pictures, these memes, like prayers, just all kinds of stuff, man. I'd be like so annoyed by him. I'd be like, man, you're like your brother, man, but if you don't knock it off, you know what I'm saying? I was so annoyed at the time back then. And yeah, his time was walking in the light, you know, although it was short whenever he was alive, you know, but hear me, even a short time of walking in the light with the Lord, it can echo louder than a lifetime of darkness. A lot of people remembered him because we were so young, you know what I'm saying, who he was growing up, and then who he became. He became a Christian. So people's memory of him, the last memory they have of him, was him pushing God on everybody because he really was. He was still him, but it was like a different him. And that's all he would talk about. So that's what people remember. They had a whole memorial over by Albertsons when it was Albertsons. In Sacramento, right across from the CD store. There used to be a CD1 store. Everybody, like all the rappers, to sell their merchandise and all that, right? In Thomas, south of Thomas. You know what I'm saying? Shopping center over there. And they had like candlelight vigils. I was there for it, the whole thing with this picture, candles everywhere and everything like that, you know. I'll never forget that. So, but that, as I was saying, that is what I see when I look back now as a Christian. His final days were not wasted. He was not running around in the streets, fighting and hustling. He was not lost, in other words. He was surrounded by his family, and he was getting his life together. He was walking towards or for a purpose. And that gives me peace because I know that he made it into heaven. Because that's all he was focused on once he found God. He never strayed, not once. So I know he's up there waiting. As crazy as that is to people that knew us back then or people that knew him. Because I was kind of in and out of everybody's group, you know. But anyways, that truth changes. You know, as the truth changes, it's how I carry the pain, you know. That's how I deal with it. I remember the good parts of them and the good memories that we had. You know what I'm saying? There's so many of them that come to mind. There really is. Because pain, listen, if you let it, it can become a poison, right? And the enemy, meaning Satan or demons, they're going to whisper in your ear and they're going to use your grief and they're going to twist tragedy into bitterness and try to make you think that God failed you, that he abandoned you, or that he simply does not care about you. And yes, for years, I let those lies take root in myself. I truly did. I can't deny that. But God is bigger than that. He's bigger than the pain. He's bigger than anger. And he's bigger than the roots of bitterness. See, he's bigger than the loss. See, sometimes, even in tragedy, God plants seeds that do not bloom until years later. God's timing. Kenny's life and death, it became part of my own testimony. See, his story helped me back to God that I had to curse that day. Back to the Savior that I walked away from at one time. That's why I love the prodigal son story so much nowadays. So when I remember my brother, I do not just remember the crash, the fire, the loss. I remember the redemption. I remember the grace. I remember the homeboy who, even for a brief moment, let the light of God shine through him brighter than anything else could. Even when he's angry, you could tell that he was like humble. He was still like, like I said, it's a weird thing to explain. You know what I mean? It was like a different him. It's interesting. So today, as I stand, he is one of the lights that reached me in my darkest period. Don't let tragedy push you from God. Let it pull you closer to God instead. Do not let grief become your grave. Let it become your growth instead. Do not let bitterness choke out your blessings. See, if Kenny could turn his life around, If I could come back from Satanism to salvation, then you, whoever you are that's listening, you can find your way home to God too. It's not too late. So rest in peace to Skrill. You're still remembered often. And you're still missed, brother, to this day. You truly are. And I think you really got to beef in these certain areas to understand what I'm saying. But that homeboy right there, man, I still think about him to this day. I was just talking about him the day before yesterday, in fact. See, but most of all, Skrill, if you can hear this, and I know you can, you made it, bro. You did it, what we used to talk about. You made it to the most legit business that you can. You made it off the block, homie, to a mansion in heaven. You love God, brother, sincerely. So I sincerely say, and I sincerely believe I can say, when it comes to Skrill, I can say, homie, rest in peace, brother, because it ain't many of us I can say that. But with you, I can say rest in peace. Now, I want to talk a little bit about my time when I was homeless. See, again, some of these photographs that I'm going to be attaching to this, some of this goes back to the times that I was homeless. I was staying at the Twin Cities Rescue Mission in Marysville, California. And so some of these photographs that you guys are going to see, these are around like 25 years ago, if not longer in some areas. And at that time, I had got discharged from the California Conservation Corps, or the CCC. I was stationed in Sahara District, South Lake Tahoe. My C1 was Tony Vasquez, but I had a dishonorable discharge from the CCC at that time period. Now, at this time, that was back when, disposable cameras, that's really all we had, as I was saying at the beginning of this episode. So when I say I was on the streets, listen, I do not mean that like a metaphor, like some slang. Like, oh, you just hang out in the streets. And that's not what I mean. I mean, like, literally, the streets, they literally were my home. And I slept underneath bridges and abandoned houses. Wherever I really could find shelter at, that's where I would be at. And trust me, there is nothing pleasant about being homeless. Nothing. I don't care what pipe dream somebody's trying to tell you. There's nothing pleasant about it. There was no running water in these houses that were abandoned. There was no electricity. There was just bugs. And I mean like roaches in the worst of the worst. Spiders, ants, everything. The fridge that they often left in these homes, abandoned houses, they were useless. You know what I'm saying? But basically what we did was we put non-perishable food in it. You know what I'm saying? So there's no point in storing perishable food. So like I said, we would go and we would get like whatever we can get our hands on. And we would still use it like an additional shelf. Now, the carpets in these places were normally nasty, as you can imagine. They had a dirt texture to them. Like, it was so dirty. The floors in these houses are so dirty that when you put your hand on there, you could actually feel the sliminess of the dirt. There's so much dirt on them that you could literally feel it. Like a dirt texture. It's hard to explain, but it was on top of it. Now, the toilets that you would find in these places, they were full of feces, okay? Often, people resorted to the sinks, so the sinks would be full of feces, urine, and whatever else from people that stayed there before you. They're not going to flush, they can't. So they just leave it, and it just sets for however long. Yeah, you'll see maggots and everything else in it too, for sure. So listen, you'll learn quick not to bring non-perishable food, and you learn quick to bring bleach, if you can manage to find it. Tea light candles for light, but you had to keep them low. So, the cops and security guards, as they patrol the neighborhood, they wouldn't notice that light. So basically what you would do is you would try to keep it as low to the ground as possible without catching anything on fire, because you didn't want them to see the glow from the fire. And that was for that reason that we did that. So normally what would happen is you would have to sneak in through like a broken door or window. There's always... Hold on a second, because I really want to back up to that part again. How you did it. You would normally, I call it pay off the neighborhood dogs. Like, if there were dogs in there, you would become their friends before you started living in an abandoned house. You would want to give them food, things like that, pet them, to get them used to you. So they wouldn't really bark too much, you know what I'm saying? Maybe one bark and they'll stop. Now, there was always a way to create an illusion that it was a regular home to someone that didn't know. You know what I'm saying? like why there was people coming in and out of it. If you were smart, you can create that illusion. Now, you always avoided neighbors. And like I said in this article just now, I just now got done saying ahead of time, you bribe their dogs to basically keep them quiet. And you basically, you really would pray that you would not get caught. And honestly, some people did pray to get caught. I've seen it. Some people are like, Lord, it's so cold out here today. Please just let me get caught. It'd be so nice to go to jail and just have a nice warm meal and shelter. Believe me, it gets that rainy, it gets that dark, and it gets that cold sometimes. I wasn't one of them, but I knew some people that were. And I knew some people that would be praying that. I'd be in the other end of the room praying, please don't let me end up in handcuffs. Don't let these fools end up, nothing happening. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to get caught up. Now, at the time, that was life. It was the same cycle every night. I mean, I would sleep over underneath an overpass. I would ask myself these questions. Do I want to go sleep underneath the underpass? Because there was an underpass over, I don't know if it's, I doubt it's so many years ago. I doubt it's still like that. But back then there was a hole that you get into underneath the bridge underpass. And when you went in there, you would see beds and stuff like that lined up. So you can catch, a quick nap or something on those beds. Or you would ask yourself, do I want to go stay down by the jungle, by the river? That's what we called it. Because it was just like a flock of trees at some point. They were used as like fruit orchards or whatever it is. It's a spot down by the river that everybody on the streets, we called it the jungle. And you could like stay out there sometimes. Or you'd ask yourself, do I want to sleep and try to see if there's a spot at the Twin Cities Rescue Mission? And I'm about to get into this in a minute. See, at my age back then, okay? The rescue mission, I know that's why I said a lot of you guys are saying, Mike, why didn't you just go to a rescue mission? I did. But listen, at the age I was back then, it was never guaranteed that you get a bed. And here's why. There was a waiting list. This is Sacramento and Marysville, California. There was waiting lists to get those beds. Sometimes you get lucky to get one. If you got in, though, you'd have to you get a meal, sure. And you would even get a cot. But you'd also have to go by the rescue mission's rules, okay? And that was mandatory. A lot of times that would be like mandatory Narcotics Anonymous and Alcohol Anonymous or NAAA meetings that they would force you to go to just so you can have a sleep there at night. And you'd have to go mandatory church service every single night before dinner. Before you had dinner, there was church, and that was non-negotiable. Seniors that were homeless, they always got first dibs on beds. And then at-risk youth, they would come second to get in line for the beds. And if there was a space left, you, as a regular age guy, would finally maybe be able to get you a bed at the rescue mission that night. Maybe. Normally you wouldn't. Because like I said, crowding issues and etc. Now, the meals there, you can imagine they weren't that much, right? I mean, for example, ice cream mix was used as milk, okay? And this guy, Pete, he swore by it, man. He said that the mix, I would go on and on about how it's not proper, man. It's not milk. You can't be giving this to like the women and kids that would come stay with us to get a meal because it was a men's only rescue mission. But at nighttime, the women would come and get a meal. They couldn't stay there, but they can come eat and all that kind of stuff. I was like, you can't do that, bro. And he was like, he swore by it. He said, look, and he would get vitamins and milk right there. He said, same vitamins and milk. So it's milk. And they would get away with that. We had a lot of vanilla mix. So we had a lot of vanilla milk. And we had a lot of beans for dinner. There was normally 2 to 3 kinds of beans with every single dish. The donuts that they would get, the legendary donuts. Okay, so the donuts came from Albertsons, all right? They would throw out their old donuts, and basically Pete and some other people, Pete and some of the other guys, they would go out there to Albertsons. I'm talking early in the morning. I don't know when they did it, but they would go early in the morning. And by the time we got up, like you came outside to the smoke pit, and they would have this big cookie sheet out, and they would have these donuts out there. And they were so warm that like the glazed icing would be melting off a little bit, and it would be slightly, honestly, a little bit soft and warm from being left out. But the downside of that was they were covered by ants, flies, gnats, and everything else. And you would just, basically what you would have to do is take something like this and just kind of scrape it off before you took a bite to get the bugs and stuff off of it. And And that's literally what it was. I mean, but like I said right here, when you're starving, the donuts actually seem like they're amazing. I can't eat donuts to this day. Well, I will sometimes. It's extremely hard for me to eat donuts to this day because I ate so many of those donuts, and the memories of the bugs and everything is still there in my head. And you just kind of like, you try to not think about it, but it's still there. You know what I mean? But that's the reason why, if you ever know me offline and you'll hear me say that, like I might eat one once in a blue moon. There's plenty of times people have got donuts around me, I won't even touch them. And that's the reason why I ate so many of them. And it just got that old. Now listen, the people were actually like, relaxed, honestly. There's a lot of veterans, especially Marines, that basically taught me how to survive on the streets back then. How I would have to set up camp first, and how to clean your water, how to use cardboard against a fence to block the wind breeze, how and where I could find food, like sandwich giveaways and food giveaways, which churches gave me clothes, where the food trucks were parked at, where they gave vouchers at. And they also taught me basically the homeless code. And this is mainly the Marine veterans that did this. A lot of the Marine veterans, they took me underneath their wing when I ended up on the streets, man. And they really did. And that's the reason why, to this day, I have a lot of mad respect for people that are in the Marines. It's always been a branch that I wanted to personally join growing up. I actually tried to do everything humanly possible to join the Marines. And never was able to. But I have a lot of respect for them as that result, and even more respect after so many of them that were veterans on the streets. They really took me in, and they really did teach me like how to survive, like I was just describing. And if it wasn't for them, there's no telling what would happen. Now, anyways, moving on. That is why I say homelessness, it's its own world. It's its own separate society within your own society. It has its own structure. It has its own language, and it has its own rules. There are families that have been born into homelessness. I mean, whole families, some for actual generations. I knew families like that when I was on the streets. Some of the kids out there were literally born homeless and never left. They just stayed on the streets. They had kids, and their kids stayed homeless. Believe me, I've seen it so often, it was normal. This is not something that's new. This is something that is actually pretty common. They don't know any other life. That's literally what they do. So it's an actual network is what I'm saying. In the homeless world, I don't know if I mentioned this in a minute in this article, but in the homeless world, there's 3 types. You have what I was just describing, where it's like they like it. That's their lifestyle. They have multiple generations that do it, and it's like a family atmosphere. They will literally call people that they know and said, hey, yo, I'm on somebody's phone. I'm going to be calling you from another phone number when I get there, but I'm on my way to Florida and talking to another homeless person. Like, they have their own little network. And then you have people that end up homeless because they're addicts and whatever else. And then you had the people that were youth. They were just like runaways. And then you had people that were just kind of like, they lost their job and they ended up trapped and they're trying to get off. So those are the 3 type of networks. And that's what I was describing right here. There's a network of homeless people that stretch from New York to LA, Texas, and to even the Bay Area. And I'm talking real connections with a system of their own communication, okay, that they use. And they do this from cell phones and the internet. Now, and all kinds of people that you can meet on the streets. I mean, seniors who rarely did go outside. But you would have runaways, ex-cons doing their parole time at the rescue mission. People down on their luck, the disabled, the mentally and physical handicapped, the addicts just trying to stay numb. That's what most of them were doing. Chasing numbers, or chasing numbness and highs, because their pain was too heavy to carry sober for them. So they basically just decided to spend the rest of their time doing that and chasing the next high, basically. Rejection, betrayal, and loss. And even in the homeless community, they would rob you for a better pair of shoes. The drugs really had, at the time, become my only escape hatch I had. The environment that I was staying in, what I was describing right there, is literally like that. These people, man, some of them would literally cut you or kill you because your shoes were better than theirs. You understand what I'm saying? Your socks were in better shape than their socks, bro. That's the level of homelessness I was at. Yeah, they kind of like a family atmosphere for protection, but don't get me wrong, man. Greed is still the center. And that's really that's what I'm describing right there. You know what I'm saying? And then you got the drug aspect. If they were on a bad high, they were on a bad high. Sometimes they didn't even know what they were doing, but you were there and you had to deal with that. Now, I really met every kind of person back there that you could think of. Some of it was actually beautiful. Most of it, however, that I went through when I was homeless, I would not wish it on anyone. That pain, the feelings, and the things I experienced and witnessed that I can never unsee, I would never witness that on anybody. I would never wish on anyone, not even my own enemy, would I wish things I seen and went through on anyone. So this is why I actually get defensive when people talk down about the homeless. When I hear people talking smack about the homeless, talking down to the homeless, or, making fun of the homeless people, that offends me because I was homeless for so long off and on. Like handing out food is fine. Okay. However, let me ask you this. Have you ever sat down with a homeless person? Like actually sat there with them? And I'm not talking about so you could take photos and post them to your Instagram and your social medias so you can get those likes and, hey, you're doing a great deal and doing God's work and all that. So great for feeding the homeless and hanging out with them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, did you go down there and sit down with them when the cameras weren't rolling? Did you actually sit there and eat with them, breaking bread with them without the cameras rolling? Did you stay long enough for them to actually start trusting you? Because if you did not, you would have to learn a lot more than what you actually expected. Trust me. I still remember Hooker Alley in Marysville, California. So we called it back then. See, that was right behind the Jack in the Box with the Circle K. And back then they had a laundromat. I think it was it's some other store now. But back then it was a laundromat. And they had these ghetto apartments off to the side, right? That was tucked right behind it. It was only 5 units there. And the place, it just kind of had a vibe to it. Kind of a feeling, if you will. I'm trying to get away from that word vibe. But it just had a feeling to it. And one of the ladies, that lived there was the aunt of a girl I was dating at the time. The other lady was her partner that lived with them. Yes, they were lesbians, folks. You heard that right. Both of them were actually solid people, in my opinion. Now, I'm trying to think of how I'm going to word this next part, okay? See, my memory back then was kind of foggy. Now, those are my homeless and drug addict years. Days and nights and months, they all kind of blurred together. The truth is, I am blessed to be alive. I had 2 overdoses more times than I can actually count, is what I meant. I have overdosed more times than I can actually count. It's not something I'm proud of. It's just something I went through. At one time, I weighed less than 130 pounds. I was actually skin and bones. Literally, I had pictures where my face was completely sucked in. My eyeballs were gouged out. I looked like I didn't eat at all. Like severely malnourished. Now, that same alley I'm talking about, that was right there. That's where I lost my friend Raven at, okay? I've talked about that on this show before. It was a bad heroin deal that went bad. There was blood everywhere. I actually shared this event on my show in my testimony series, I believe. Some things you just cannot forget. And that night, my friends, is one of them. As I said earlier, those 2 women were solid people, the lesbians I knew. They were solid people. It was my ex-girlfriend's mother and her fiance at the time. And yes, I will attach their pictures. They were cool with me, man. They always treated me cool. I always treated them cool. And I was cool with them as a result. That's how I work. I don't necessarily care what you feel like about certain things. As long as you're cool with me, I'm cool with you, man. And that's basically how I roll. As soon as you're not cool with me, though, we're going to have some problems. You know what I'm saying? Now, after that night, they became like family to me because of what happened. Meaning, to my head, like I was just saying, they proved that they were real to me. I witnessed that murder. And it's the reason I don't like talking about it, but that night when it happened, those are the 2 people that was there for me. And it's not something I'm ever going to forget. Now, I was not involved in the heroin deal, okay? I was just there at the wrong place. And to this day, I don't think that the people that killed Raven, I don't think they ever caught those guys. People, they talk about the streets like it's just chaos. Like it's just nonsense. There was an unspoken code, though. A set of rules and a set of order to them. And yes, it is a world. It's a world of their own. Even after all these years, I never forget those people. I never forget those two women and what they did for me. They calmed me down. And they helped me deal with the situation the whole night. Now, that whole strip, right, that had its own reputation, even it was so bad that little alleyway I'm talking about, it was so bad. The laundromat got raided more than once. You heard that right. The laundromat got raided more than once. There were so many drugs, so many hookers, and so many drugs in and out that street and in that laundromat that they raided the laundromat. Not for cooking. They raided the laundromat simply because it was a known spot to use drugs at. Now, listen, there was a reason why the locals used to call it Hooker Alley. Yeah, a lot of truckers know that place back in the day. But back then, Marysville, California, there wasn't really much to do late at night. In the early mornings, especially, I think that Jack in the Box right there, that laundromat, and the Denny's down the road from there that I used to work at. I was a busboy dishwasher at the Denny's in Marysville, California, for those that live out there. That's right. I worked at that Denny's I was a graveyard dishwasher and busboy there. Now that was over 25 years ago, but I can still picture it crystal clear. I can even remember the morning after walking out of my homegirl's apartment, my ex-girlfriend's mom's apartment, and snapping a photo of both of them. You see, folks, the reason I love photography, every photo, it has a story. And that photo, that story was mine. See, in those apartments, I'm trying to see what I wrote. In those apartments, Lucienne and Gentry, okay? These are another set of apartments that I lived at back in the day. Gentry and Lucienne, they're two other lesbian girls that were very close friends of mine. I would even say, wager at one time, they were like sisters to me. And they were my neighbor for a long time. My homeboy Measy, I was talking about earlier, that he lived right next to him. I lived right across the street from him, and my homeboy Cliff right next door to me. So we stayed. You got to understand apartment living, man. You know what I'm saying? It was all like a community kind of thing. We all hung out all the time as a result. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, there were some crazy wild times for sure. And most of the stories basically are locked away, though, that I have in a vault. And that's for a very good reason. But a few of them, once in a while, they bring back a laughter. And I like to hop on here and let you guys hear them for yourselves. Because I decided that I could actually talk about it now. There's a lot of things I can't talk about. And like I said, if you know, you know. But anyway, like the night, for instance, I could talk about this one. The night that the cops were swarming our apartment complex. And there was like helicopters circling over here. And I mean, they had like, I remember I just got back from class because I used to take nighttime classes at Sacramento City College. So I just got off the bus and went, because I used to stay in South Atoma. And came inside my house and I just did a couple of lines of cocaine and the police chopper light started going through the blinds in the apartment. And you could hear them talking, you know, through the speaker. Like I said, I was a drug addict and I was a different person back then. So I don't remember exactly what they said. I must have not heard them. Because earlier that day, I decided that it was time for me to shave my head. So I shaved my head. Fashion back then was basically real simple. We wore big, plain colored t-shirts and fitted caps. So I had a fresh haircut, white tee, you know what I'm saying? And there I go. They're saying, beware of an armed, white, bald male suspect, right? Wearing a white tee, running through the apartment complex in a police helicopter. I'm so far gone that here I am with the fresh shaved head and a white tee. And I just go running through the apartment complex to my homegirl Elle's apartment that lived on the other side. Now, you got to understand something, man. If you live here, you know what I'm saying? Okay, hold on. Let me backface. So when I got to over where Elle was, there was cops everywhere on the main road. Like I said, they were looking for this guy that was armed. I guess he had ran from downtown Sacramento, and typical in the neighborhood, he ditched a car in our apartment complex. It was typical. And went for a run. And they were like, had typical, like, you know, the streets blocked off and the whole nine. And when I showed up, I'm sweaty from running through the apartment complex, and it was a normal build. The cops say, do you live here? Do you got ID? What's your name? The normal 50 questions that they would ask you. You know what I'm saying? So it turned out they were looking for a white male suspect with a shaved head and a white tee. That was possible, you know, police chase ended up in our apartment complex. Now, that night, everyone in the neighborhood was outside. Luckily, we got it cleared up pretty quickly. But, man, you talk about laughing for weeks. We were laughing about that for weeks, man. Because I straight up did not hear. I just went for it. And that's why they were breaking my balls about it for, like, weeks everywhere I went. They're like, hey, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because they were on me, man. They had the lights, everything. They had me up. Yeah. But, okay, so one time, another funny story I have about Gentry. She showed me her bong, okay? Now, understand this. Her dad had made this custom for her. And whenever she decided to get married to my homegirl Elle, who was Mong, Lucianne, it was like their housewarming gift. Now, the bong was just a woman's torso, chest, and stomach and everything. The mouthpiece was a neck, and the carb was her nipple. You'd have to rub it as a carb. Now, yeah, you did hear that right. It was a gift from her dad to her and her wife for their housewarming gift. But that was apartment life, you know? I mean, cops one night, laughter the next. Chaos, but our kind of chaos. Elle was Mong, like I said. My ex was Mong, Yang. She was a Vu, by the way, Yang Vu. Now, they were both what was considered green Hmong. And I remember I remember that right away, there was like a culture connection between our apartments because of that. I mean, it felt like family. And it was in a kind of a messy, dysfunctional family kind of way. But it was still family. As weird as that is to describe, you know what I'm saying? It's a hood thing. So looking back now, most of those memories, man, they're rough, you know what I'm saying? Some were tragic and some were funny. Funny enough, though, it still makes me laugh out loud. But there's still a part of me, my past story, I didn't share it to glorify it, okay? I share these past stories with you guys because it's real. It's what I went through. Every picture, every place, and every person I know, there's a story behind it. And after all these years, I am still here to be able to tell those stories when most didn't think I would be. Okay? I think I'm going to cut this one short. I was trying to decide if I wanted to go ahead and make another one real quick. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. My kids are about to be home from school. And like I said, everybody, this is just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to title this episode yet, but something to do with photographs and memories. Just kind of some personal reflections on my old neighborhood in Sacramento and some of the people I know, what life was like back then, why I feel the way I do about homelessness. Because throughout my show and my blogging, you'll notice that I have a high emphasis on news that involve crime, that involve with drugs, human trafficking, street gangs, organized crime, and homelessness. And there's reasons for that. And that's because there's things I went through in my life that were circulating around certain areas like that. And now that so many years have passed, I feel comfortable enough to where I could share some of my personal reflections and certain personal stories with you guys. It's something that I've been thinking about doing for a very long time. It's something that I was too worried about doing when I first started doing podcasting. And then recently I just been thinking about it more, and I'm like, why not? But if you ever wonder why Mike's so passionate when I defend the homelessness, it's because I used to be homeless. I know what their life is like. I know about their inner culture. I know about how they walk. I know how they work together. Because of that, I have a different viewpoint of homelessness. And don't get me wrong. I know that there's some of them that they choose to be there. They truly do choose to be there. I knew guys that said, yo, I love this. I don't have any bills. I don't have any responsibility. I can sleep wherever I want to. Whatever money I have in my pockets, my money to do whatever I want to. I ain't got to worry about it. You know what I'm saying? I got nobody to report to. Now, that was just some of those people. But great majority of people that I knew that was homeless were actually disabled veterans and normally mentally handicapped. And unfortunately, the system basically threw them away on the streets. And that's literally, you could tell that's how I feel about it. You know what I'm saying? They did their job in the military and they came back and they had some issues from the things that they seen in combat. And those things messed them up in the head for a long time. And that trauma that they're going through, instead of helping them, a lot of their families didn't know what to do with them. There was so much trauma that they're going through that their family's like, I can't deal with this, and just threw them away onto the streets. And then worse of that, that's basically what the government did to them as well. They took them and just threw them away on the streets. Like, thank you for your service. Have a good day. Take another pill and go off and die. And that's why I have such a problem with the homelessness. And when people have a problem with homelessness, you get what I'm saying? I am not a supporter of homeless camps. I don't want people to misconstrue my message. I'm not saying, hey, let's have a homeless camp everywhere. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there needs to be done more about the culture and understanding of homelessness. They're not all drug addicts. They're not all hookers. You know what I'm saying? And they're not all runaways. A lot of them are trapped. And a lot of them want to get untrapped. But to do that, you got to go through the system. Some of them make it. Some of them don't. A great number of them don't. And you'll be surprised at how vast their networks are. There's underground towns that you can go to where they created their own little underground system. Do you get what I'm trying to say? There's amazing things to it. There's some scary things to it. Just like a ghetto neighborhood. You got people that want to be there, but most of them don't want to be there. I've never been in a bad neighborhood and majority of the people say, yo, I'm so happy to be here, man. I'm so proud to be from here, man. I hope I never leave, man. I hope I'm in that same place for the rest of my life and I never leave. That's very rare. Normally the people that you see that's like that are gang members. And that neighborhood is their hood. So why would they want to leave that? You know what I'm saying? That's their hood. That's their neighborhood. They ain't going to leave that. That's the ones that love the hood. That's like, I never want to leave. And believe it or not, majority of those people don't want to be there either. They trying to figure out how to get off the streets too. You dig what I'm saying? And that's a fact. So with that said, that's the reason why I have such a hard time dealing with people talking about addicts, about homelessness, about anything like that. I'm like, have you ever been through addiction? Have you been through drug addiction? Like, I mean, real drug addiction. Okay, not this. I'm going to go to some rehab and go to a vacay. You know what I'm saying? And then do a bunch of little books about it. You know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the scary kind of addiction. Have you been through real drug addiction? I'm talking about the real scary kind of drug addiction. There's thoughts and feelings that go on with that only people that's been through it know what I'm talking about. There's things that happen that are a result of that lifestyle and the things that they're going through, whether they choose to or not, or whether they've been programmed or not. And to understand what I'm talking about by program, you train these girls, okay? Let me say real quick. I knew a lot of pimps, okay? So one of the things that you would do is you would get a girl, normally like, you know what I'm saying, one with self-esteem issues, things like that. Daddy issues, first off, is a gold mine. If they have daddy issues, that's a gold mine. Or low self-esteem issues. What they would do is find ones like that. And what you want to do is you take them to a hotel room and you get them strung out. Is what they do. They get them strung out on dope and hooked on it. And understand what I mean by this. I'm not talking about just like they're going to get hooked and they're going to need dope. No. I mean addicted to the point to where I watch people literally say, hey, yo, Mike, check this out. Take the meth pipe, look at the girl and go, hey, yo, B, you want this pipe, don't you? You want this glass D, don't you, bitch? You want this, don't you, B? You want this, don't you? And then toss it across the room and tell them to go bark like a effing dog that they are on their hands and knees and go pick it up their effing mouth and bring it back to him. And when they did that, they came back up to him and he said, yo, B, give me that bitch. And then threw it back and goes, go get it again. And they did it. And these girls at one time were the cheerleaders, were the models, were the popular girls in school. Almost every single freaking time. Why is that? That's by design. I'm sorry if I got a little bit too much to it, but when it comes down to human trafficking, there's reasons why I say I care about those set of crimes. A lot of those girls really are like that. What I mean, they've been programmed, okay? They're trained to do that. And then then they bring them comfort and support them and protect them. Okay, it's a whole psychological training process to it. I'm not going to give you guys the whole recipe to it. For those that know, there's a whole psychological training process that goes with this. Okay, and then they put them out there. And a lot of times, these girls are so trapped, okay, within the cycle of the community, the street community as a whole. That's a big umbrella of a community, folks. But they're so hooked within this community, right, that you basically what you want to do is you try to you really want to aim towards escort service, but that's really hard to do. You know what I'm saying? So you just you got your tops all the way down to your bottoms, and you get them working right, and then basically you put them in a strip club. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times that's what happens when they start to get used up. You throw their asses into a strip club. Normally your homeboy ran the club, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Have you? And that's that. But it is a whole network. Like I had a homeboy of mine one time, back when Craigslist was big. I was dropping off some coke, and that was my thing. Was cocaine back in the day. Not something I'm proud of. But I was dropping off something to him, and he said, yo, he was looking at Craigslist. He goes, yo, Mike, I think that's one of my old girls that I used to know back in the day. I said, man, whatever, bro. This girl said she out there in like Dallas or I think it was Dallas or San Antonio. I don't know, something like that. He was like, nah, man, I swear that's my old hoe I gave to my homeboy. I was like, what you mean, bro? You know what I'm saying? And so he said, yo, what's the number? So I gave him the number, and he called her up, and the girl called him back and said, what's up? And they started talking. And he said, well, you tell your daddy I said that Meezy called and he needs to talk to him as soon as you get back to the house. The girl was like, all right, I'll do it. You know what I'm saying? So time went by. It was about 20 minutes later. Ring. Old boy from Texas put that, what's up, Meez? That's what I'm trying to tell you, folks. You think you know, but you don't know. This is a whole network, okay? It's a big thing. And that's the reason why I'm on the other side of it now. My goal basically is to help people. I want to, you know what I'm saying, with all this, my personal reflections of things I went through. I really wanted you guys to understand why I care about these true crime cases that I chose to post about, or what I choose to follow when it comes down to true crime. There's reasons why it's involved human trafficking. There's even a much more personal reason that I'm not ready to discuss just yet. But that's the reason why I do so much human trafficking episodes. It's the reason why I do so much exposure about human trafficking when I see it. Resharing, commenting, networking, and etc. That's the reason behind that. You guys understand that the homelessness stuff that I do, that you see me posting about, is because I used to be homeless. And no, I do not support homeless camps. I don't remember if I fully finished saying that earlier. I don't support the homeless camps where people are like, just let them set up wherever they want to. Now, unless somebody has, like there's this guy, he was a bounty officer in Sacramento. He bought some farmland and he decided to make that a homeless camp. And the city of Sacramento, they went in and shut him down as a result of that. Now, that's what I mean. Like, I support something like that where you're helping them learn to get off the streets. If their end goal is to help them get off the streets to be self-sufficient, I support that. But if your end goal is just to make money, I don't support that. But that's just me. But anyways, guys, this has been Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts. You guys can expect another episode coming your way here pretty soon. Let me see what I got for y'all. I got some really good episodes coming up. And like I said, I wanted to do some OTTs first to work it out in my system and get ready to start recording again. And, you know, work out the system. Or season, I should say. Sorry. So anyways, that's been two different ones right there that I did together. I decided to combine. And next time we're going to do another episode. I'm going to explain to you guys why knowledge and real world life experience matters. You heard that right. My next episode, I'm going to go into details about why I do things the way I do and why I feel like real world experience matters more than intellectual experience. You could be all the book smarts that you want to be, bro. You know what I'm saying? You could be able to pull up any reference sheet you want, any penal code that you want, or any kind of thing that you want to make you an expert. That's not the same thing as having personal experience. Personal experience in something will always trump academic experience. Personal opinions, because of personal experiences, will always out-trump intellectual thought of experiences and why things should be the way they are. If somebody could say, hey, I literally came from this environment, I literally went through this, I'm going to be more willing to listen to that person than I would the person with the degree. Why? Because they went through that, or they're there. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I've always been like that. So the next episode, I'm going to explain to you why that is. And with that said, everybody, this is Mike for Mike's Random Thoughts. You guys can expect a new one coming real soon, okay? Oh, and I should say, there's 2 series specials that I plan on doing. That's why I'm trying to go through these OTTs so fast. You guys have... sorry, I'm excited about it before I could even release it. But you guys have 2 really good research, thought out series specials that I'm planning on releasing here pretty soon. And I'm trying to get through these OTTs, make sure that everything where I'm recording that set up right, and we're not going to have any issues. So I'm basically, I'm trying to work everything out. And at the same time, I'm also trying to network with everybody. So if you're one of my fellow podcasters, or if you know me from doing podcasting and blogging, or if you know me from offline, let me know, and we can figure out something where we could bring you onto the show. I'm getting around to where I want to be able to do live shows again. Live interviews, I should say. And I still don't know how to work the live show features, guys. I know. Stoners tried to help me figure it out at one point. A lot of people have. Dirty Water tried to help me figure it out with like streaming and all that. I haven't fully figured out how to do the live feature. In fact, last time I checked, my YouTube people, Google said I'm not able to do live shows yet. That's right. I have to have so many subscribers still, and I don't have that subscriber count. And I don't have those viewer counts. So I need you guys to subscribe to my Spotify and to my YouTube, please. That way I can start networking and start circulating the episodes more than what they are right now. Right now, I'm circulating them on 3 platforms. I'm hoping that I can get back to being on around 20 different platforms. That's what my end goal is here. At least I'm hoping to accomplish that. We did it before, and we could do it again. And with that said, this is Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts. Reach out, holler at me if you want to work on a project, if you have an idea. Oh, if you have an idea for an episode, let me know. I'm always researching. In fact, I got this. Hold that thought. Somewhere, I have a piece of paper, and I have a bunch of different ideas about people that I want to cover. History ideas and true crime ideas. For those that know, I'm trying to get back into true crime and history. You guys will see the direction of the show that I want to do here pretty soon. That's what these OTTs are about. Just new episodes are coming. You're going to have less political talk, and you're going to have more true crime, more history, and more theology. I'm willing to say that much right now, but I don't want to say too much too fast. And with that said, this has been Mike for Mike's Random Thoughts. Everybody have a great night, and I'll be hearing from you guys here pretty soon.